Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into a topic that affects so many of us. The surprising science behind our daily habits, and how they secretly shape our lives. You might think your morning routine is just, well, a routine. But what if I told you that every tiny action, from hitting the snooze button to the way you drink your coffee, is part of a complex neurological loop that dictates your success, happiness, and even your health? It sounds intense, I know. But stick with me, because by the end of this video, you have the keys to unlock your brain's full potential and build a life you truly love. So, what exactly is a habit? At its core, a habit is a behavior that's been repeated enough times to become automatic. It's your brain's way of being efficient. Think about driving a car. When you were first learning, you had to consciously think about every single step. Check the mirrors, press the pedal, steer the wheel. It was exhausting. But now, you probably do it without a second thought. That's the power of the habit loop in action. This loop, discovered by researchers at MIT, consists of three simple parts: the cue, the routine, and the reward. The cue is the trigger that tells your brain to go into automatic mode. The routine is the physical or mental action you take, and the reward is what helps your brain figure out if this particular loop is worth remembering for the future. Let's break it down with a common example. Checking your phone. The cue might be a notification sound, or maybe just a feeling of boredom. The routine is picking up your phone and scrolling through social media. The reward, a little hit of dopamine, that feel-good chemical, from seeing a new like, a funny video, or a message from a friend. Your brain learns that cue plus routine equals reward, and boom, a habit is born. The problem is, this same loop works for both good and bad habits. Procrastinating on a big project, the cue could be the daunting task itself. The routine is opening a new tab to watch videos. The reward is the immediate relief from the stress of the task. Your brain doesn't judge. It just follows the formula. This is where things get really interesting. You can't truly eliminate a bad habit, but you can change it. The secret lies in keeping the cue and the reward the same, but consciously swapping out the routine. Let's say you have a habit of reaching for a sugary snack around 3 p.m. every day. The cue is the afternoon energy slump. The reward is the sugar rush and a quick break. Instead of trying to fight the urge with willpower alone, which we all know rarely works long-term, try to diagnose the real reward you're seeking. Is it the energy? Or is it just a distraction from work? If you're craving energy, try replacing the cookie with a brisk 5-minute walk outside or a handful of almonds. If you're craving a social break, go chat with a coworker for a few minutes. You keep the same cue, the 3 p.m. slump, and you get a similar reward, a feeling of refreshment. But you've changed the routine to something healthier. This is the golden rule of habit change. Now, let's talk about building good habits, because the principle is the same, but we can supercharge it. One of the best techniques is called habit stacking. This was popularized by James Clear in his book Atomic Habits. The idea is to link a new habit you want to form with an existing one you already do automatically. For example, if you want to start meditating, you could stack it onto your morning coffee routine. The formula is, after my current habit, I will do my new habit. So, it becomes, after I pour my morning cup of coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute. Your existing habit, making coffee, becomes the cue for your new habit, meditation. This makes it so much easier to remember and integrate the new behavior into your day, because you're not relying on a new cue. You're using one that's already hardwired into your brain. Another powerful tool is to make your good habits incredibly easy to start. We often fail because our goals are too ambitious. We say, I'm going to work out for an hour every day, and then we miss one day and give up entirely. Instead, use the 2-minute rule. Scale your new habit down to something that takes less than 2 minutes to do. Read every day becomes read 1 page. Do yoga becomes take out my yoga mat. The point isn't to get a full workout or finish a book in 2 minutes. The point is to master the art of showing up. You're making the start of the routine so easy that you can't say no. Once you've started, it's much easier to continue for longer. You're building the habit of consistency first, and the intensity can follow later. It's also crucial to design your environment for success. If you want to eat healthier, Don't keep junk food in your house. Put a bowl of fresh fruit on the counter instead. You're making the cue for your good habit obvious, the cue for your bad habit invisible. If you want to practice guitar more, don't leave it in its case in the closet. Put it on a stand in the middle of your living room. The more friction you can remove between you and your desired habit, the more likely you are to stick with it. Our willpower is a finite resource, so instead of relying on it, let's be architects of our own environment, making the right choices. The easiest choices. Think about it. You are the product of your environment, so curate it to create the person you want to become. And finally, let's talk about the reward. The reward is what solidifies the habit loop. For bad habits, the reward is often immediate, like the taste of a cookie. For good habits, the reward is often delayed. The benefits of going to the gym aren't visible after one session. This is why it's so important to give yourself an immediate reward for completing a good habit. It doesn't have to be anything big. After you finish your 2-minute workout, you could celebrate by saying "done" out loud, or by tracking it in a journal and seeing the streak grow. This tiny moment of self-congratulation gives your brain that positive feedback it needs to say, "Hey, that was good. Let's do it again tomorrow." It's about creating a feeling of success, no matter how small the accomplishment. This immediate reinforcement is the secret sauce to making good habits stick for the long haul. So, to recap, understand the routine reward loop. To change a bad habit, swap the routine but keep the cue and reward. To build a good habit, use habit stacking. Apply the 2-minute rule to make it easy. Design your environment for success, and give yourself an immediate reward. These aren't just clever tricks. They are scientifically backed strategies for rewiring your brain. Start small. Pick one tiny habit you want to change or build. Maybe it is drinking a glass of water when you wake up, or putting your phone in another room an hour before bed. Apply these principles and see what happens. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and the life you've always dreamed of begins with a single, tiny, atomic habit. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope this gives you some practical tools to start making positive changes in your own life. If you found this helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content on personal growth and practical science. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. What is one habit you're going to work on this week? Let's support each other. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video. When most people hear the word discipline, they picture something punishing. They picture a drill sergeant screaming in someone's face. They picture rigid, joyless routines and cold showers and giving up everything that makes life enjoyable. They picture restriction, sacrifice, suffering. And because they associate discipline with suffering, te avoid italiano, they tell themselves they'll start being more disciplined once things calm down at work, or once the kids get a bit older, or once they feel more ready. What they don't realize is that this avoidance, this constant deferral, this endless putting off of the hard thing in favor of the comfortable thing, that is the actual suffering. That is the real pain. Because here is the truth about life that nobody likes to say out loud. There is no escaping pain. It's not on the menu. The choice you have, the only real choice you actually have in this life, is which type of pain you're going to experience. You can experience the pain of discipline, which is real but temporary, which builds you, which compounds over time into strength and freedom and self-respect. Or you can experience the pain of regret, which is also real, but which grows heavier with every passing year, which chips away at your confidence, which hollows out your sense of self, which leaves you older and more stuck than before. Both paths involve pain, but only one of them leads somewhere worth going. And once you truly understand that, I mean truly, viscerally, deeply understand it, everything changes. Because you stop thinking about discipline as something that is being done to you, and you start thinking about it as something you redoing for yourself, for your future, for the life you actually want to live. So let's redefine discipline properly, shall we? Let us strip away all the gym bro posturing and the productivity influencer nonsense and get to what it actually means. Discipline is simply this: keeping the promise you make to yourself. That's it. That's the whole thing. When you say you're going to wake up at 7, you wake up at 7. When you say you're going to read for 30 minutes before bed, you read for 30 minutes before bed. When you say you're going to put 50 quid into savings this month, you put 50 quid into savings this month. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be extreme. It just has to be consistent. And the reason this is so profoundly powerful is that every single time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how small that promise is, You deposit something into what we might call your internal trust account. You build a little bit more faith in yourself. You confirm to yourself, on a cellular, neurological level, that you are someone who follows through. And when you're someone who follows through for yourself, you become someone who can follow through for others. And that quality, that reliability, that quiet steadiness, that is worth more in the real world than almost any other trait you could possibly develop. People notice it. They trust Italiano, opportunities flow toward it. Let's talk about why. Think about the most reliable person you know. The one who, when they say they're going to do something, just does it. No drama, no excuses, no follow-up required. How do you feel about that person? You probably trust them completely. You'd recommend them to others without hesitation. You'd want them on your team, in your corner, working with you on something important. Now, imagine if you were that person, not just to others, but to yourself. Imagine having that level of trust in your own word. Imagine knowing, without a shred of doubt, that when you set yourself a target, you will hit it. Because that's what discipline actually builds. Not just results in the external world, though those come to. First, and most fundamentally, discipline builds a relationship with yourself that is unshakable. And from that foundation, from that bedrock of self-trust, absolutely everything else becomes possible. Now I want to take you through something that fundamentally changed the way this young man thought about his own potential. Because when he started on this path, when he made that first decision in that dark room to take responsibility and force a change, he made a classic mistake. He tried to do everything at once. Sound familiar? Monday morning comes, and suddenly you're going to wake up at 5. Go to the gym, eat perfectly, read for an hour, meditate, journal, do a cold shower, learn a new skill, and save 30% of your income. By Thursday, you've done none of it, and you feel worse about yourself than before you started. This is the trap of motivation. See, motivation gives you this surge of energy and enthusiasm, and it makes everything feel possible and manageable and exciting. And then it disappears, usually around Wednesday. And when it goes, it leaves you feeling like a failure, which makes you even less likely to try again. Which means the next attempt starts from an even lower baseline than the one before. It's a vicious cycle. And breaking out of it requires understanding something really important about how human beings actually work. We are not robots. We don't run on willpower alone. Our brains are wired to conserve energy, to seek pleasure and avoid pain, to take the path of least resistance wherever possible. That's not a character flaw. That's evil. For most of human history, conserving energy was a survival strategy. But in the modern world where the path of least resistance leads to Netflix, delivery food, and social media, and all the other comfortable numbing agents our society has on tap 24 hours a day, that ancient programming works against us. So we can't just rely on willpower. Willpower is a finite resource, and it depletes throughout the day, like a battery. What we need instead of willpower is systems, routines, structures that make the right behavior automatic, that remove the need for a decision in the moment, because the decision has already been made in advance. This is what true discipline looks like in practice, not white-knuckling your way through every day. Building an environment and a set of habits that make the right thing the easy thing. So here's the first profound, game-changing lesson we need to sit with. Discipline comes before motivation, not after it. Before, Italiano. Let that sink in for a moment, because it runs completely counter to everything we've been told. We've been told that you need to feel motivated, feel inspired, feel ready before you take action. We've been taught to wait for the feeling. And this is one of the most damaging pieces of advice in circulation, because it puts the cart before the horse every single time. The feeling of motivation, that buzzing, energized, anything is possible feeling, it doesn't cause action. It's actually the other way around. Action causes motivation. When you force yourself to do the thing, even when you don't feel like it, even when every fiber of your being is resisting it, what you'll find, almost every single time, is that once you've started, something shifts, momentum builds, energy appears from nowhere. The very act of doing the thing creates the fuel to keep doing the thing. But you have to start first. Without the feeling, against the resistance, in spite of the excuses. That's discipline. That's the leap. And it is a leap. Make no mistake about that. It genuinely feels impossible the first few times you do it. But here's what nobody tells you. It hits. Easier. Not because the discomfort disappears. It doesn't. Not entirely, but because you build tolerance. You build a track record. You build evidence that you're capable of doing hard things. And that evidence, accumulated day after day after day, becomes the most powerful source of motivation you've ever had. Because it's not borrowed from a podcast or a book or a pep talk. It's yours. Built by your own hands. Grown from your own consistent action. Let me give you a very concrete example of how this plays out in real life. Because I want to make sure this isn't just abstract philosophy. Let's talk about the morning routine. Specifically, what happens in those first few seconds after your alarm goes off. Because in those few seconds, you will fight one of the most important battles of your day, and most people don't even realize it's happening. Your alarm goes off. Let's say it's 7 in the morning. Your body is warm. The bed is comfortable. Outside it's gray and cold. Because this is Britain, and of course it is. Every instinct you have screams at you to hit snooze. And your brain, bless it, is already constructing reasons why that's the sensible, logical, totally justified thing to do. You were up late last night. You worked hard yesterday. You deserve a bit more rest. 5 more minutes won't hurt. But here's what actually happens in those 5 minutes. You don't rest. You drift in that uncomfortable half-sleep where you're anxious and drowsy at the same time, watching the minutes tick by, knowing you should get up, feeling worse with every passing second. And then eventually, you drag yourself out of bed, later than planned, already behind, already defeated before the day has even begun. You've lost the first battle, and that loss echoes through everything that follows. Now contrast that with this. The alarm goes off. You don't think. Thinking is the enemy here, because thinking gives your brain the opportunity to talk you out of it. Instead, you just act. You sit up, you swing your legs out of the bed, you stand up. The whole thing takes maybe 3 seconds. And in those 3 seconds, you've done something that your past self would have thought was beyond them. You've won the first battle of the day. And that win, that tiny, seemingly insignificant win, sets a tone. It sends a message to your nervous system that today is different. Today, you are in charge. Today, you are the one calling the shots. Not your impulses, not your comfort, not your laziness. You. And from that foundation, everything else is easier. Not easy, but easier. Because you've already proved to yourself before 7 o'clock in the morning that you can do hard things. Now imagine doing that every single day for a week, then a month, then 6 months. Imagine the cumulative effect of winning that first battle every morning for 6 months straight. Do you see how the compound interest of discipline works? It doesn't happen in a day, but it's happening every day. And one day you'll look up and barely recognize the person you've become because that person is calmer, clearer, more focused, more confident, more capable than the person who used to lie in bed hitting snooze and wondering why life wasn't going the way they'd hoped. But I want to go deeper than morning routines, because this isn't just about wake-up times. This is about the entire architecture of your life. Because discipline, real discipline, touches everything. It touches how you spend your money, how you treat your body, how you engage with your work, how you show up in your relationships, how you manage your emotions, how you speak to yourself in the moments when things don't go to plan. And each of these areas deserves proper, serious attention. So let's go through them one by one. Let's really dig in, because the person who disciplines all of these areas, not perfectly, nobody's perfect, but consistently, that person becomes genuinely unstoppable. And I mean that word sincerely, not as a motivational slogan, but as a straightforward description of what happens when you bring order and intention to every corner of your life. Let's start with something that most people find deeply uncomfortable to talk about honestly. Money, because money is one of the clearest, most immediate reflections of a person's discipline level. Not because wealthy people are more disciplined in every area of life. They're not, but because financial discipline, or the lack of it, shows up so quickly and so starkly in the reality of your day-to-day life. When you have no financial discipline, You feel it constantly. The low-level anxiety every time you check your bank balance. The tight chests when an unexpected bill arrives. The quiet shame of knowing you earn enough to be comfortable, but somehow it all disappears before the month is out. And then there's the creeping despair of watching your savings account sit empty. Or worse, watching your debt creep up month by month, knowing you're working hard but somehow running backwards. This is the financial chaos that undiscipline creates, and it is exhausting. It is genuinely, deeply exhausting to live in that state of constant financial stress. Now, the solution is not complicated. I want to be very clear about that. There is no secret formula. There's no investment strategy or financial product or get-rich scheme that's going to fix this. The solution is boring. It's simple, and it works every single time. You spend less than you earn. You save before you spend. You track where your money goes. And you make decisions based on your long-term financial goals rather than your immediate emotional impulses. That's it. That's the whole secret to financial discipline. But knowing it and doing it are two very different things. Because money is emotional. Our spending habits are tied up in our identity, our social life, our sense of pleasure and reward, our need for comfort and status. Changing those habits requires a kind of deep, sustained discipline that most people never develop. And so, they stay broke. Not because they don't earn enough, though that's sometimes a real issue, and we should acknowledge it, but more often than people admit, because their spending reflects who they are rather than who they want to become. Here's a question I want you to sit with. If someone could see every single purchase you've made in the last 3 months, what would those purchases say about your priorities? Be honest with yourself, because your spending is a form of voting. Every pound you spend is a vote for something. Every takeaway when you could have cooked is a vote for comfort over growth. Every impulse buy is a vote for your present mood over your future security. Every subscription you're not using is a vote for carelessness over intention. None of this means you can never enjoy yourself. Life is for living, and there's nothing virtuous about misery. But there is a profound difference between conscious spending and unconscious spending. Between choosing deliberately and with full awareness how to use your resources and just drifting along, swiping your card on autopilot and wondering where it all went at the end of the month. Financial discipline means bringing that same intentionality to your money that a disciplined person brings to their time, their health, their focus. It means looking at your financial life and saying, does this reflect where I'm going? Or does this reflect where I've been? And when you start to answer that question honestly, when you start to see your financial habits clearly, without the comfortable fog of denial, something interesting happens. You start to get angry, not at the world, but at the patterns you've allowed to persist. And that anger, channeled properly, becomes fuel, becomes the motivation to track every expense for a month, to set up automatic savings before you even see the money, to cancel the subscriptions you're not using, to meal prep on a Sunday instead of ordering in every night, to resist the sale that is not actually saving you money because you didn't need the thing in the first place. None of these things are glamorous. None of them will get you likes on Instagram, but every single one of them is an act of profound self. Every single one of them is a declaration that your future matters more than your immediate comfort. And over time, that declaration compounds. The savings grow, the debt shrinks, the anxiety eases, and in its place, something remarkable appears. Options, freedom, the ability to say yes to things you actually want, because you no longer trapped by financial chaos. That is what financial discipline builds, and it is absolutely worth every moment of sacrifice. Now let's talk about something else that discipline fundamentally transforms. Consistency, because this is where so many people come unstuck. Not because they lack talent, not because they lack intelligence or creativity or passion, but because they can't sustain effort over time. They start things brilliantly, enthusiastically, with every intention of following through, and then they stop. Something gets in the way. Life intervenes. It hits hard. It gets boring. Results don't come as quickly as expected, and so they stop. And then they start again, and stop again. This start-stop-start pattern is one of the most devastating forces in human potential, because it burns energy. It builds a narrative of failure, and it never allows the compound interest of consistent effort to do its work. And that compound interest, I cannot stress this enough, that is where all the real transformation happens. Not in the dramatic bursts, in the quiet, steady, relentless accumulation of small efforts over a long period of time. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine two people, both starting at the same point, both with roughly equivalent talent and intelligence. Person A is inconsistent. They work incredibly hard for 2 weeks, then take a week off. They have a brilliant month, then a terrible month. They're motivated in short, intense bursts, but struggle to maintain momentum. Person B is consistent. They don't always work as intensely as Person A at their peak, but they show up every single day, not always brilliantly, sometimes just adequately. But they're always there, always moving forward, always adding another brick to the wall. Now, after 6 months, where are they? Person A might have had more impressive individual days, but Person B has built something solid, something that's compounding. And by year 2 or 3, Person B is so far ahead that it's not even a contest. This is what consistency does over time. It is quietly, relentlessly, unfairly powerful. And it is available to anyone willing to show up every day, not just the days when they feel inspired. The days when they don't feel like it. Those are the most important days of all. Here's why. On the days when you feel motivated and energized and inspired, showing up is easy. Everyone shows up on those days. There's no competitive advantage in doing the thing when it's enjoyable and effortless. The competitive advantage, the thing that separates the people who build extraordinary lives from the ones who merely dream about them. That advantage lives entirely in the moments when you don't want to. When you're tired, when you're frustrated, when progress feels impossible, when you've hit a wall, when the results aren't coming and you can't see why you're bothering. Every time you push through when you'd rather quit, you engrave something into your character. You write another line in the story of who you are. And the story you write, day by day, moment by moment, in those difficult, unglamorous, nobody's watching moments. That story becomes your life. So what story are you writing? I want to pause here for just a second, because I know that some of what I'm saying might feel a bit heavy, a bit overwhelming. Like, all right, I need to overhaul my entire life. My finances, my habits, my mindset, my morning routine, everything all at once. And if I don't do it perfectly, I've failed. And I want to be very direct with you about this. That is not what I am saying. That's not what discipline means. Discipline does not mean perfection. It does not mean never having a bad day, never slipping up, never missing a workout, or overspending or sleeping through your alarm. That's not discipline. That's an impossibly high standard that will crush you before you've even begun. Real discipline is simpler and far more achievable than that. Real discipline means that when you have a bad day, you don't turn it into a bad week. When you miss a Monday, you show up on Tuesday. When you'll sleep, you acknowledge it. You understand what caused it. You adjust, and you get back on track. That's it. The ability to recover. The ability to be consistent over the long arc, even if there are wobbles along the way. That is the discipline that actually changes lives, and it's accessible to every single one of us. Let's talk about talent for a moment, because I want to completely demolish a myth that is holding enormous numbers of people back from even trying. The myth that talent is the primary determinant of success. Now, talent is real. Some people are born with natural aptitude in certain areas. Musical ability, mathematical thinking, athletic potential. These things exist, and we shouldn't pretend otherwise. But here is what decades of research, and more importantly, real-world experience consistently demonstrate: talent, without consistent, disciplined effort, almost never fulfills its potential. And consistent, disciplined effort, even in the absence of exceptional natural talent, almost always produces results that exceed expectations. The tortoise beats the hare every single time. Not just in the fable, in the real world, in every field, in every industry, in every walk of life. The steady, disciplined, consistent person outlasts, outperforms, and outbuilds the naturally talented person who relies on their gifts rather than developing their habits. Think about the people you've known in your life who are undeniably talented. The brilliant kid at school who seemed to grasp everything instantly. The naturally charismatic person who could walk into any room and win people over without trying. The one with the voice, the creativity, the athleticism. Now think about where those people are today. How many of them have built the extraordinary lives their talents seem to promise? Not many, I'd wager. Because talent without discipline is a beautiful car with no petrol in it. It might look impressive on the drive, but it's not going anywhere. And conversely, think about the people who didn't seem particularly gifted early on. The slow starters, the ones who had to try harder, work longer, practice more. The ones who built their capabilities through sheer stubbornness and consistency. More often than not, those are the people who end up somewhere remarkable. Not because they were lucky, because they were disciplined. Because they committed to the long game when everyone else was playing for short-term thrills. There's a man who became one of the most celebrated writers of his generation. He was rejected by publisher after publisher for years, not because his writing was poor. His writing was actually exceptional, but because he kept going. Because he kept sitting down at the desk every morning, whether he felt like it or not, whether the words came as Ali or were dragged out of him one at a time. He showed up, consistently, relentlessly, long after most people would have concluded they were not cut out for it, and eventually, the world caught up with his discipline. The same is true in every field. Science, business, sport, art, music, entrepreneurship. The consistent people win. Not always quickly. Not always obviously, but always, eventually. This is one of the most reliable patterns in human history, and understanding it should be profoundly encouraging to you, because it means that no matter where you're starting from, no matter what your background, your education, your natural abilities, you have access to the most powerful force in human achievement. You just have to be willing to use it every day. Your time is coming. Keep believing. Keep fighting. Don't just watch. Go out and prove them wrong. Thank you for being part of the journey. If you liked it, please like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.